Good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, should I start over? Thank you. Well, if the audience is female, it takes always longer than male to, focus them. Just, experience. So, all right. Good afternoon again. My name is Hakan. I used to teach in a university in Turkey, but recently I moved to England, back to England. I work at Leeds Beckett University in England. Leeds is the third largest city in England, and there are about 5 universities only in England, very popular. But in England, it's a small country, very small. And Leeds, although it's the third largest, I think the population is about 750,000, not a massive city. I used to live in Lincolnshire in England, but since we had the job in Leeds, we moved there. And we are working and living there for about 9-10 months now. And every winter, these nice people invite me over to the US. And I don't know what they find in me, but this is the conversation I have with my wife. I grab my books. I said, right, I'm going to talk to people in a circle, sohbet. She says, are you going to pretend to be a hoca again? I said, I don't know, they want me. She says, do they not realize you're not a real hoca? You're just, I don't know. They say, she says, oh, have they not found anyone better? This is typical wife-husband banter, but we usually go through this all the time. So, but I know the score by now. I am a physicist by trades. I trained to be a physics teacher. That's years ago, in 1995. Don't ask my age. I started teaching physics in 1995. Then I went on to study masters in leadership and management. Then in late 2000, I decided to study PhD, and I picked Nursi's writings. So I did my PhD on the existence of God. I studied Risale-i in University of Durham in England. So, although I was trained to be a physicist, initially I ended up being a professor of philosophy. Quite a career change, but I'm still in educational context. It is, somehow entails teaching. At the moment, I do a bit of teaching, but my main research at Leeds Beckett University is leadership and governance in Islam. So this July, I'm organizing a big event, inviting people from different parts. And John Esposito, for that matter, he's gonna, we are trying to contact him through Emre Çelik. I was with him this morning. Because one of the publishing houses in England, Paul Gray Macmillan, they wanted to publish the book. So a bit of academic research, bit of teaching, bit of traveling, and a lot of domestic work. So I'm quite pleased I'm here because it saves me from cooking and cleaning. So, and my wife says, look, how long are you going for? I said, about 11 days. She says, can you cook several dishes in large pots, put them in containers? This is not a joke, this is real. I had a message this morning. She said, we defrosted your last yemek today. We don't know what we're gonna eat tomorrow. I said, look, mate, you're a big girl, you have to look after yourself. So my wife is French, French. And she thinks she's lucky because I like cooking. So, bit of fun there. I'm married, I got 3 children. The eldest is 17, she's gonna start university. I got 3 daughters, youngest is 4, middle one is 10, eldest is 17. So, that's me. Although I like talking on a plan topic, so this is how things work with Hizmet. Everything is spontaneous, nothing is planned, so we just live the moment. It is, adrenaline all the time. So last minute, one of the sisters whispered in my ear, says, "Can you talk about eschatology, Mehdi and Judgment Day?" I said, all right. So I haven't planned anything, but what I learned in time, because I spent about 9 years studying Nursi's writings, and in one of the pieces he says, whoever reads these books for a year and whoever studies it thoroughly can become one of the respectable scholars of the time. So it is in 21st letter, 21st gleam. We mentioned with the boys. Kim bu risaleleri bir yıl okursa mühim bir alim olur. I thought he was just promoting his work, but actually it is quite useful because what he did, he touched upon every topic, not exaggerating. So if this topic worth a page, he wrote a page about it. If it is worth a book, he wrote a book about it. So in terms of distribution, yes, he talked about eschatology, Ahir Zaman, Mehdi, Yevmul Kıyame, etc. It is in the fifth ray. So I'm gonna just read you a small selection and talk about it. But what I noticed, this is only a small portion of his writings. He placed a great emphasis on faith matters. So he says, if you don't have a strong iman, if you don't have a strong faith, it doesn't matter when Yevmul Kıyame is. So iman, faith is, more urgent than everything else. But people do ask, and there are, weird but funny questions in Risale-i Nur, such as, where is hell? When is the day of judgment? What is the nature of paradise? He wrote about stuff like this. But as I said, it is not the heavy portion of his writings. When he talks about eschatology, he didn't strictly dedicate this chapter for that. He starts off with criticism to some prophetic traditions, hadith. Some people said there are some ahadith, plural of tradition, which contradicts with reality and science. And Nursi says, not really, and he picked some of them and he explained. He sort of defended the authenticity of those ahadiths, but at the same time, you find indications as to the nature of Antichrist, that is Antichrist, Dajjal, or Sufyan. And he picked about 20 prophetic sayings and he explained them. And he said, look, this is how we should understand this, and there is no discrepancy in it. So we all know the time has almost come to the end. We know the next stop is Armageddon, Qiyamah, Day of Judgment. And there are some sayings of the Prophet. He says certain things will happen, certain people will emerge, time very close to the Armageddon. One technical term, Nursi talks about two figures. One is Antichrist, Dajjal. And he also says you're going to have small Antichrists in Muslim communities. And he calls that person Sufyan. So when we talk about Dajjal, he's the big Antichrist. When we talk about Sufyan, he is the Dajjal, Antichrist of the Islamic world. Okay. So when the Prophet said, this is genuine, this is in Bukhari. So most of these traditions are in Sahih al-Bukhari, and it is Book of Fitan. So this one says, before Armageddon, there is gonna be a person, Antichrist, whose hands, there is gonna be a hole in his hand. So we are talking about a person, Antichrist, walking among us with a hole in his hand. And a lot of people says, look, you can spot the person easily if he's a hole in his hand. And the Nursi says, this is just a symbolism. He says that person will be very wasteful. He's gonna have millions and millions pounds, or dollars in your case. He's not gonna hold on to any money. He's gonna be very wasteful person. So this is the first one. So the symbol having a hole in his hand means he's gonna control a lot of money, but he's gonna waste a lot of money. You know, average person can survive with £2,000 a month. That person will suffer although he spends £2 million a month, dollars in your case. This is one of the first one. He sort of, you know, explained why it makes sense, why it is not crazy. Because a lot of people, they say, oh, these books telling about the prophetic sayings are all, most of them are inconsistent, they are rubbish. Look, man with a hole in his hand. So this is the explanation. That person, the Antichrist, will be very wasteful. Second one, this is a good one. He says, this is again in Sahih Bukhari, Fitan 26. He says that Antichrist person will have a message written across his hand, forehead. It says, Haza kafir. Means this person is a disbeliever. So to me, this sounds like someone, some crazy person with lots of tattoos and tattooed on his forehead. And everybody says, then you can tell this person is the Antichrist because it says, Haza kafir on his forehead. So how do you think we should understand this one? Can you imagine anyone walking across the street with something written across his head? What could be the symbolism in this? It is certainly symbolism. What do you think the symbolism in this? It's all right, we are just among us. So there is no tests, no passes, no failures. Any ideas? If not, I'll tell you the answer. So how can anyone walk in the street with this person is kafir, disbeliever, across his forehead?
Maybe he is lying easily, like obviously.
Okay.
Or his face is like dark and ugly. Like no nur on his face.
Okay, that's one approach. Nursi says, sorry?
That's okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I like participation.
Maybe they're addressed very immodestly, like somebody
Very close.
that has no,
Where's the hat maybe specific?
Very good, spot on. Nursi said that person, Antichrist, will have the symbol of kufr, disbelief, on his head. This meant, what is the symbol of faith? If you go to Islamic countries, you go to Ottomans, they have a fez. You go to other places, they got takke, white. The symbol, because if you do sajda, if you prostrate, you have to have your forehead open. So, the symbol of faith is having a fez, turban, or a takke, so that you can do sajda, your forehead can touch the ground. So what is the opposite of this? What prevents you from doing sajda? A cap with a visor. So he says this person will make an invention. He's going to change the headgear of a nation, Islamic nation. He's going to remove takke and Islamic headgear, and he's going to force people to wear hat. Because with hat you cannot do prayer. You cannot do sajda. You know, baseball cap. So he doesn't tell the name of the person, but he says this tradition, this hadith actually means he's going to bring a new invention and he's going to change the symbol of Islam with symbol of disbelief. So, introduction of non-Islamic headgear. He says this is the explanation. What do you think? Does it make sense?
I mean, both things you gave so far are extremely commonplace now. People spending money and not having enough. I mean, there are many examples of that. Of course, baseball hats are everywhere.
But I mean, if you think it in a context, because baseball caps or hats, is not a symbol of anything in the US context. But if you have a country which was sort of Islamic for several centuries, and suddenly you get up, you are forced to remove your takke or fez and put a cap instead. So if you put this in a context, it makes sense. In the US, it doesn't mean much because that's how everybody dresses.
But you can take it off when you need to pray.
In further piece, he says, when Antichrist forces people to put the symbol of disbelief, those Muslims, they're going to put that hat because they're afraid of their safety, but they're going to turn that baseball cap into Islam by simply turning it round. This is the common practice in Turkey because a lot of people, old people, in Anatolia, they have their casket because it was a law. You had to wear it.
Still.
Is it still the law? Yeah, it is still in, for example, Turkish constitution. You have to wear the hat.
Especially the officers, government officers should wear it.
Because we all know there was shortage of hats in Turkey. They sort of imported from France. It was so expensive. Now we have mortgages. We buy a house, we pay it 25 years. And a lot of state civil servants, they had sort of long-term contract to pay off their hats cost several years. This is crazy, but crazy it is. I think it's still in the constitution. You have to wear the hat.
Soldiers, just for soldiers?
And
For everybody.
for everybody, yeah.
I don't see people wearing those in Turkey.
A lot of people are breaking the law, madam. But
It's in the paper, but no one cares, right now, no one cares.
Yeah.
It's in the books.
Well, it is in the law, so they can easily persecute you because it's still in the law. But Nursi later says this nation is a good nation. They are gonna make the Muslim, they are gonna make the hat to become a Muslim simply by turning it round. This is how it is in Turkey. Everybody has in Anatolia especially, all village people. They come to mosque, they turn it round, they do their prayer, and they turn it back round, and carry on doing their daily tasks.
I mean, it sounds very artificial. I mean, I can understand for someone who has lived here in the United States, it's very unbelievable to, such a circumstance. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, many scholars of Islam at the time were persecuted and even executed because they refused to change their headgears. And that's also because of the point that you mentioned, it had a significance. For religious people, that kind of headgear had a significance, a religious significance, versus the people who wanted to change it had an agenda to change that religious idea. So it is not only a dress, a gear, a headgear, whether you put it on or not. It's not something that that's optional. But it had a significance, and that's why the fight was over.
Absolutely.
Partly over that.
It is not a simple fashion trend. There was a bigger message behind it. So, in that regard, Nursi says this hadith makes a lot of sense. So, that person who forces people to put non-Islamic headgear, it is like he's going to put the head on himself, and it is like having a message stenciled across his forehead. As a kafir, this person is a disbeliever. Moving on, the third one. Now we have an active audience participation. I'm going to tell you the hadith and I'm going to ask you what you think about it. The third one says, the Antichrist will have a fake paradise and fake hell. What does this mean? He's going to have a paradise and a hell. How could we interpret this one? How can you have a paradise and how can you have a hell?
But a fake one.
Fake one, yeah.
But a fake one. So maybe having whatever your desires want, and then all of a sudden losing it all. Maybe I don't know. Or execute
Okay, yeah, you're getting close. You're coming.
Making the situation for some people that don't agree with you, making that hell, and then the people that agree with you making their lives like paradise.
Madam, you should be sitting here. You're spot on. So he says this Antichrist person will be so powerful, he's gonna create fake paradise and fake hell, like gulags. You know, Stalin used to send people. It is their hell. And palaces, etc. You know, unlimited pleasure, everything. So it is a fake paradise. So basically, whoever agrees with him, he puts them in his paradise, in his palaces. Whoever disagrees with him, he sends them to the hell, that is like, you know, labor camps, gulags. So he says, in that regard, this makes a lot of sense. So that dictator person, he's going to change the religion of the Islamic nation, and whoever disagrees, as a sister said earlier, either gets executed or sent to labor camp. So this hadith in that regard symbolizes that, the fake paradise and fake hell of Antichrist. Moving on, this is number 4. We have 20. I don't think we can cover all 20, but we are going to go as far as we manage, because I keep watching people, if the heads start falling, and if the phones pop up and people check their WhatsApp messages, it is an indication. You know, in good old days, in English mines, they used to put canaries in the mines. Not for fun, because they didn't have carbon monoxide detectors. So they had canaries in the mine. When the oxygen level is low, the birds died. Then they knew it was time to get out. So we call this canary indicator. Now I call it iPhone indicator. When I'm talking to people, if everybody is listening, I say, my son, carry on. People are, if the phones are coming, you know, messages and fingers move up and down, I said, time to stop. Right, that's the indicator. We come to number 4. He says, in Ahir Zaman, you know, the time before Armageddon, there is going to be no one praising and worshipping God. How do we understand this? Ahir zamanda Allah Allah diyen kalmaz. There is going to be no one saying, praising or praying to Allah. What does this mean? How do you understand this?
We find ourselves like more important things, like we forget about. You know, we are more busy with the things.
Because when I read this one, I thought this doesn't make sense, because we have like always 1/5 of the world population is Muslim. We have like 1.5 billion. I think it is scientifically not possible to destroy all of them. There should be someone saying Allah. So that's one way of explaining this. But Nursi says this Antichrist will come and will shut down places where people do zikr and worship. Good one. So this was even beyond me. So if someone comes to the US and closes all the mosques and all gathering places, etc., so it means not many people left out to praise God, to worship God. So this is Nursi's interpretation, how there is going to be no one praising and praying God. So this actually happened at some point in Turkish history. They actually shut down, they passed a legislation, because until 1926, Ottoman culture was based on Sufism, and a lot of small houses of worship, tekkes and dervishhanes, etc. People gathered, they had tea, and the law was passed in 1926, and they were all shut down. So it says, look, this makes a lot of sense.
And how about changing the azan?
Spot on. The good thing about Risale-i Nur, it gives you a tool. It gives you a fishing rod. A lot of people ask me questions, I make an interpretation, I answer. They say, wow, that was good. Where does it say in Risale? I don't know. I just use the tool given by Risale. It gives you a perspective. It gives you tools to interpret events. You know, Abdullahi said nicely, another explanation, you change the language of prayer from Arabic into another language, then you end up having lots of people, but none saying Allah. They say Tanrı.
Even if you can Google and hear it, the tape.
Oh, you
Yeah.
have in.
Yeah.
It's not in here.
Yeah.
But you see, if you use the right tool, you can solve many problems. That's one benefit of, involving with Nursi's writings. It gives you way of thinking. It gives you method to solve problems. Then you know what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So, quite useful. Moving on, the fifth one. Before Armageddon, Antichrist will declare he is God and he's gonna make everybody prostrate in front of him. So, the floor is yours. What do you think? No Googling, no cheating.
She's taking notes.
You're taking what?
Notes.
Okay, you're taking notes. Oh, that's a good one. You know, they do Twitter. When you approach, I'm taking a note. It always works. Right. Any ideas? Before Armageddon, Antichrist will say, I'm your Lord, I'm your God, and you have to prostrate in front of me. So,
Leaders.
Abdullah, you're pretty good.
Politicians.
As we see from Turkey.
Statues.
Good one. Good one. So you're getting this Risale-i Nur logic.
What did you hear?
Sorry?
We didn't hear.
Right. Would you-
Statues.
I am a student of University of YouTube. Are you? It is like a university. You can learn a lot. And one of my hobbies is to watch stuff about North Korea. Fascinating. You know, like us, we Muslims, we go to the house of Lord, we bow, we prostrate 5 times, we worship. Watch some videos about North Korea. They have their daily worship, daily rituals. They got father, son, and their leader, and they actually do sajda and they do ruku in front of them. And actually, this is true. A lot of people, Antichrist people, they got their statues erected, and they force people to, salute and bow, etc. And the best example is North Korea. Fantastic. So this.
That means that they have been in this or they have been in the world and they are going to be, unfortunately.
I witnessed the same thing when I was in Uzbekistan. You got Lenin everywhere, and in a lot of dictatorships, you don't necessarily bow, but you are reminded, benevolent, all-powerful, all-seeing, all-seeing, all-hearing Lord is watching over you. That's having the portrait. It is very common. I don't know, do you do portraits in the US? Do you have your fathers, fathers of... Do you do that? In some countries, the man is everywhere. If you can watch BBC, there is a very funny series with about 4 or 5 episodes called Dictatorland. Very funny stuff. And it is very compatible with this chapter, and it helps you a lot to understand this. Because those figures, they replace themselves with God. You say, look, this is what we do to God. we get ready, put our clothes on, prepare, shave, and do our ablutions, wudu, and we go worship. Because he is watching over us, he is protecting us. You know, Al-Asma, Al-Husna, all divine names. Then you notice those people, they got their posters hung on every wall. In every junction, you got their massive murals. So it is, in that sense, yeah, this hadith explains that. They make you, they say, I'm your God, I'm your father. I look after you, I protect you. So come and, you know, show your respects to me. So it is like worshipping the mini God.
And it was interesting, you know, for Trump's speech in Poland, we don't really put big pictures of our leaders up in the U.S. But Trump just went to Poland, and they put up big pictures of Trump in Poland, and they had him looking like very severe, like a dictator picture, you know. Did you see those pictures that they put up for his speech?
Yeah.
And in Saudi Arabia, didn't they put him on like a multi-story building?
Yeah.
A picture of Trump?
Is Trump Antichrist? Is that what you're telling us?
You know,
Maybe.
we didn't do it here.
He has a
We
lot
didn't
of
do it
baseball
here,
hats.
But these countries that, well, have monarchies.
Look, okay. So I don't want to get in trouble with U.S. authorities. I get in and out. So
This is a free country. You can say whatever you want.
I really hope so. You know, I went to this mosque in Leeds. Google, I love Google. I think it is God gifts to, you know, humankind. So you can Google, find the nearest mosque, and you can go to Tarawih there. So I Googled, there is this Bengali mosque near my house. You know, in Turkish mosques, we have mihrab where we do our prayer. We usually put a Quranic verse across. Which verse do we put? Do you remember?
Ayatul Kursi.
You can put Ayatul Kursi in Turkey.
There's one.
By mistake, we put كُلَّمَا دَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا زَكَرِيَّ الْمِحْرَابَ because there is mihrab in it. Some crazy person said, oh, this is mihrab, there is mihrab in it, yet slap it there. I try to solve this enigma because I read the whole chapter. It is about Zechariah looking after Maryam, Mary, and mihrab is where Mary is living. Each time he goes in there, كلما دخل عليها زكريا المهراب وجد عندها رزقا. Whenever Zechariah walks in, he finds food there. This is the context. But some crazy Turkish person says, oh, there is mihrab here, let's slap it there. But actually the correct verse is فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامِ. This is the correct one. Turn your face to Masjid al-Haram. Anyway, I went to this Bengali mosque. They put this verse which reads, Allah does not change a nation unless they change themselves. You know, we complain about dictators and all the evils and sufferings, but trust me, a lot of people, they have all that evil because they deserve it. I mean, you got, you know, Saudi example. I mean, you have your God. You don't need to put like 20-meter poster of a person. And we have this desperate need of having a, you know, idol figure. This is the old habit of old Arabs. They had their idols, something to worship. Islam came, removed idols and brought Tawheed, but people still have that old reflexes. So they like, you know, I was in that country recently that I had to run. I was thinking, this is crazy. How is this happening? Then actually, the regime is what great majority of people actually want. Because the man is their role model. They say, I wish I had palaces. I wish I had a flotilla. I wish I had... And when they look up to the man, they see themselves. So that verse fits in perfectly. Allah gives you whatever you ask for, whatever you deserve. And He doesn't change you unless you change yourself. So I think in that regard, people getting what they deserve for. I went for a walk this morning with Emre, and we came to a conclusion, because people in this country, they are sincere, ihlaslı. That's why Allah is very generous to them. It is green, it is full of water everywhere. You know, bountifulness is one symbol of Allah is being happy with you. This is hadith in Emirdağ layıkası. If there is too much unfairness in a country, Allah cuts the rain. Drought is the first indication. I was in a city in that country, it didn't rain. It never rains. I say, where does the water come from? They have a pipeline, they are bringing water from I don't know how many 1,000 miles away. I come to this country, it is green, it is raining. And Emre says, because people are good believers in this country, and Allah is being nice to them, giving them a lot of rain, a lot of green. So I sort of agreed with him. So you get what you deserve, basically. Allah is al-adl. He is the just. There are, real hojais here. I'm just a physicist. Happen to know some verses. This is a trick, you memorize few of them to impress the audience. This is what my wife thinks. Because a wife never ever trusts the husband. She asks me something, I say, she says, I don't believe you. I'm gonna call Nejma. Nejma is some Pakistani woman working in a fish factory. She says, Nejma said the same. So she doesn't believe in me. She says, I'm going to Sohbet, Islamic Society of Leeds. They are running a Quran course. She dumps all the children at me. She says, okay, you do shopping, cooking, cleaning, do your ironing, and when I come back, I want the food ready. Then she goes. I say, yes, ma'am. Because she thinks I'm a fake hoja. She says, what do you know? She came back. She says, oh, we discussed about whatever issue from a verse from the Quran. I said, is that La ikraha fid din? She said, how do you know? Because to her it is shocking. He says, oh, there is no compulsion in religion. The sheikh talk about that. Because for her, I'm just the, butler of the house. Never a real hoja. Anyway, it is good to have a real hoja sitting next to me. Yes, the fifth one, actually, there is gonna be a leader or leaders who is going to erect their statues, posters, etc., and force people to show respect in front of their figures. North Korea is a good example. Lenin was a good example. And, I got pupils in certain country. I'm not mentioning the names. Okay?
There was Pharaoh also, Pharaoh, right?
Absolutely.
He had big statues back in Egypt all the way.
And he literally called himself.
Yeah. So, what is fascinating with Quran, it is never getting old. It is relevant all the time. In last Ramadan, my wife eventually partly believed that I could actually, give a speech. She said, all right, I'm giving you a chance. So can you do some, Quran lectures? I said, all right, we should start doing Surah Al-Qasas because there is Moses, Pharaoh, etc. And kids are very interested. So we did a bit of that. And we came to the conclusion that it is a timeless piece. Everything in Surah Al-Qasas fitting with what's happening in certain parts of the world. Opening page, you read it. He says Fir'aun was causing fitna in the land. He was splitting people into camps, trying to destroy certain groups of people, killing the boys, imprisoning the girls, etc. And it is like today. That's why Quran must be read all the time. And when I was young, we used to hang the Quran on a respectable high corner of the living room in a velvet bag. Then I thought, this is crazy. This is the communication. The letter you don't even open to read. But luckily in time things have changed. Now I have my own Quran. I don't know much Arabic. I do a bit. But I have Quran with line translation. I can show you in a minute. And I average one full study from beginning to end about 2 months. It is a good read. You can read in Arabic. You can. And when my mom sees my Quran, you are disrespecting. What is that pen in your hand? Because I do a lot of highlighting, writing notes. I said, Mom, we have to understand this. This is the message. But for us, you just read, kiss, and hang it without understanding it much. You can have a look at my Quran later at the end of the lesson. It is a lot of fun, and it helps you understand life better. I started off this Quranic obsession after finishing my PhD because this is a modern interpretation of the Quran. And I said, right, I have read this so many times. Let me read Quran and match. Because Nursi doesn't necessarily refer to every verses in the Quran. So some of them, you read, this is something Quranic here, but there is no footnote. But when you read the Quran, you say, okay, this is connected to this. So you make a note. And it is a lot of fun. So this is the good thing about chasing knowledge. No matter how busy you are, how old or how young, it is really, really motivating, stimulating, and entertaining. You should go into Risale studies, Quran studies. You will never get bored. So I recommend you can get a copy of the Quran like the one I have. Do some reading. You're going to really, really enjoy it. Right, this is sometimes what happens. I talk so much. I don't know. So how
Where was I?
where was I? How did I?
Talking about they're gonna build the statues and force people to bow down.
Okay.
We read the fifth one.
That was the fifth one.